This is a series where I take one character and transform them into 4 different styles. This time, I'm doing Tails from the Sonic movie with a little bit of a Christmas flair. Let's start off with the elf. And next we have the Grinch.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
For the third part, we're going to do the Gingerbread Man. And saving the best for last, we have Santa Claus. In a recent YouTube poll, you guys chose Amy Rose exponentially more than anyone else, so in today's video, we draw her in 4 different styles. Today we're starting off with realism, and unlike a lot of my other videos, I'm just going to give you a really good, simple tutorial for how I complete my realistic style. And that is, first off, we're going to start off with a base layer, and what I mean by that is, it's going to be a mid-tone of whatever color is in the background. So pink for the hair, red for the dress, etc. From there, we're going to slowly add a whole bunch of color pencils of different values, but also of different colors. We're not just going to focus on black and white. So for the red, I'll add some purples and a touch of blue, but a dark, rich purple will work just as perfectly as any black you'll ever use. Now, I do use white here, but that's because there is a ton of white in her hair. So I want to start off with a nice strong layer of white, and then work in the highlights and the shadows of the hair. Now this might seem like I'm just doing things so off the cuff really quick, but I really want you to understand that this little section took me roughly 4 hours to complete. And I'm not really a proponent of realism. It is a mental drain on me. I try not to do it as much, but I know that everyone really likes the way I do my realism and my horror. I'd rather spend 5 hours on a horror just because it's a lot of creativity and a lot of fun, a lot of expression to kind of choose, and you'll love when you see the horror, trust me, so do stay tuned for it. But this is a lot of just carbon copying of what I see and adding very little details. To achieve a lot of the little hairs that you're seeing, I use a paint pen, and I would gently flick in the little subtle hairs in layers, lights and then darks, and lights and then darks, because when we look at hair, we see lots of waves of lights and shadows, an interplay of the lights and the shadows. For the shapes of the eyes, I really want to make it seem like the eye is not white. It is actually a very subtle shade of gray, so do consider that in the future. Next up is the cracked effect, and for this I really wanted to showcase a highlighted blend that I don't normally add in a lot of my videos, so I added a lot more blending than I normally do, and that's because I really wanted the whole piece to have a three-dimensional look to it. I didn't want it to look like a very flat graphical side and then a highly rendered realistic side. I thought it would look weird, so even though there are these varying effects, I really wanted to take the time to give it that little extra three-dimensional kick to it. If you're looking to try this effect out for yourself, one thing that I would recommend is when you get to the little crack effect of the lines, is to take your time, make sure you get the squiggles just right. Don't just flick random little lines in there for the cracks. Take your time and allow all the little lines and all the little jagged edges to come out just right the way you think it should be. I would also study some broken rocks, etc. to see how it would look. Next up is the torn effect, and what I really love is that when it's done effectively, it looks like you've just scratched and tore pieces of the paper right out. And if you look, it comes out just so nice. One thing I will recommend is actually maybe take a simple piece of loose leaf paper and tear it. So when we add these lines, they are jagged. They're not clean and they're not straight. They're not squiggly like little waves. They're more like jagged swirls that are put across the paper, because you want it to make it look like as if it's being, well, quite literally torn. So this is all about studying, and sometimes it might seem like a bother, but if you really want to get better at whatever art you do, there is an element of study that you need to do. Next up is what I think you guys will absolutely love, and that is horror. This sketch, I absolutely love it. I had no problem just getting right into the heart of the sketch. Sometimes it seemed like a little bit of a work, but with this, it just came so naturally. I just pumped it out and it was just chef's kiss. I knew I wanted these claws. I changed them slightly into these jagged, gnarled nails, and then I made the little scraggly hairs. I wanted the really grotesque teeth because I was really thinking of Sonic.EXE, but I don't from the images, so I went with it, and I'm just so glad that I did, because I think that this came out great. Now, when I create a demon or a zombie character, or an undead kind of character, something that I like to do is after I've inked, I like to add a layer of ink as a baseline shadow to work everything off of. It gives a really haunting effect. It's similar to what I do with like the quote-unquote my style, but I really love the layered effect that it gives. It gives a eerie presence to it. It really makes the richness of the colors pop off the page. And for this particular design, I really wanted to keep the similar elements, the gold bangle and the hair somewhat similar so it feels reminiscent of the character, but I don't think that this is one that Sonic would fall in love with. Again, for the eye, I wanted to do something that was reminiscent of Sonic.EXE, but in my own way. This was the first Sonic drawing that I ever did in 4 different styles, and it actually is amazing to see how far I've come with the 4 different styles series. As you can see, considering that this was one of my first videos, I actually recorded it vertically, and I didn't actually record it horizontally like it would be for the YouTube format, because this was more of my shorts format, and that's just me being silly with the camera, thinking it was like, woo, really cool effect. But yeah, it's just kind of cool to go back to a lot of these older drawings that I really didn't know how to film. I really didn't know how to actually do a lot of these styles. I was just kind of winging it, and you can see how herky and jerky the camera is. So it's really cool to reflect back on a lot of these old drawings, and once again with that herky jerky motion, like I knew what I was talking about. But This was, I think, actually the first time I ever did the cracked effect on a drawing of 4 different styles, and I actually really was pleasantly surprised at how well I was able to complete this. It actually came out pretty good looking, and even the realism, it's not as much as I would do now. A lot of the realism that I do now is really, really detailed, and for this I was using low budget color pencils, I was using cheaper alcohol markers, and you could just see how much the quality really does get better when you take a lot of care in how well you do and finish a piece. So I hope you guys really like this little 4 different styles, because it was a nice little blast from the past.
There's been a high-level security breach.
The Sonic the Hedgehog games have been always incredibly near and dear to my heart, and in today's video we draw Shadow the Hedgehog in 4 different styles. Today we're starting with Burned. I wanted to bring it back mainly because I wanted to have something a little bit easier on my hand. For those of you that don't know, I have a hand injury. It's actually translated into an elbow injury, and I won't know the further details of how bad the injury is or the magnitude of it. All I know is that I go back in mid-December for an evaluation on what's happening, so I did styles that were a little bit easier on my hand and on my arm, so just bear with me on this video because I still think that you're absolutely going to love how everything comes out. As a kid, I can remember vivid memories of my father and my brother and I sitting down playing Sega Genesis and trying to beat all of the levels in one sitting of the classic Sonic the Hedgehog games, and it would just impress me, not only with the speed that the game was able to play at, but also the development of the backgrounds and the bright vivid colors. It was just such an awesome experience, something a little bit different than the more bit-oriented games of the Mario. 2 different styles of gameplay, but also incredibly fun to play. I don't know what your favorite Sonic moment was, but in my opinion, my favorite boards were either the water boards or the boards where you had to go through and bounce around and collect all the gems in a certain time, and you couldn't go outside of the arena. I always liked it because it was really creative to see the entire arena rotate around you. But let me know your favorite Sonic game in the chat. Now, for those of you who are somewhat new to my channel, in the past I have drawn both Knuckles and Sonic, though I've drawn Sonic a couple of times, once as a holiday theme and then once in just a regular 4 different styles. Knuckles I just drew a couple of regular full-length drawings, but let me know if you'd like to see me draw a whole bunch of different variations of them once the movie comes out. And now we're on to the spilled effect, and then all of a sudden, well, the spill didn't spill. So I just took a little bit of acrylic paint and then kind of reiterated it into my own little style and my variation on the spilled art, because of course I didn't add enough dark paint. I haven't really talked about that much about my art process or what I've been trying to do in these particular videos. That's because, well, with my hand and my elbow, it's been kind of a slog to get through this video. It was really a challenge, and you can kind of see how the fatigue built up towards the end and the horror effect. My hand was starting to cramp up, my elbow was starting to hurt, so I really had to break it up into 2 separate sessions of drawing. For the design itself, I did go with similar elements, so this is a warning. It does get a little bit gory, but in a more cartoony sense. There is a bulging eyeball, but yeah, it is very reminiscent of a lot of things that I've done, the matted fur, but I wanted to add this really big curly lip. I don't know why, for some reason, I felt like it was a Shin Sonic Tapes kind of vibe, so...
Oh, great heavens!
I really wanted to have that double layer of teeth, but this really bulging lip. It just, for some reason, it just kind of felt right. I don't know, maybe it's a complete hit or a miss, but that's for you guys to decide in the comments. A great art tip for a lot of beginners out there: if you're having problems blending alcohol markers, what I would highly suggest is just work with one base layer, and then from there you can either use paint pens or you can use color pencils, whatever medium works best for you, and then you can work on top of that layer. But I find when you have a single layer across the top, you can then push and pull the lights and darks a lot easier, and I find that it's a really effective way to get nice 3-dimensional space without having to do that much work. So let me know what you guys think. Do you want to see more of the League of Legends and Arcane characters, or do you want to see more of the Sonic characters? If you're someone that scares easy, then this video is not for you, for this isn't Sonic. This is Sonic.EXE. That's just a taste of what this video is about, as we draw a Sonic.EXE in 4 different styles. Don't say I didn't warn you. As you can see, I added my own little touches, but now we're on to my style. Next up is the torn effect. Is it scary enough yet? Last is the Sonic.EXE, and I really just wanted it to look like a enhanced version of Sonic.EXE with a little flair of realism attached to it. Let me know what you all think. This might be a little bit of a change of pace from my normal style videos, so let me know what you guys think, if you like this format better, or if you like my little bit longer formats where I do a little more talking in the videos. As always, thank you so much for stopping by, and if you really love this video, then YouTube thinks you'll absolutely love this video that's popping on your screen now. This was a drawing of Knuckles that I did in 4 different styles, and this was done about a year ago, and this is another blast from the past that I really just wanted to bring back because it was a whole lot of fun to do, and it was a really simple amount of art, but simple doesn't always mean easy, because a cartoon style can come across very clunky if not done correctly. Your lines have to be crisp, and your colors have to be really bold. Next up was the horror effect, and I haven't done the horror effect in this particular one in quite a while, so to see it actually come out and look the way it did, I was actually at the time pretty pleased. Now, if I were to go back and tell my year-old self at the time what would I change, I wouldn't add so much thick black outline unless I was going for an illustrative look. It's not that it makes it look bad, it's just it's too much black. You should add more grays. But I think I was kind of rushing it at the time because at the time I was trying to do 4 to 5 videos a day, which is insane. And I did the Pixel one, and this one actually got a lot of love. And that's kind of odd because Pixel is a very, well, to me, I'm just not a fan of it. I love pixel art, but I don't like the way I particularly do pixel. Maybe it's just something I need to practice. And lastly, we have the realism. And because Knuckles is an echidna, I should have probably looked up a little bit more references on what echidna's hair texture is like. So I kind of actually just winged it. And I'm not really a fan of the way this one came out, honestly. It was just trying to make it look like a red Sonic the Hedgehog, just because I was trying to find some consistency with coloration. But I didn't like the way it came out. Maybe you guys think differently. Let me know what you guys think. Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik. In the Sonic universe, there is nobody that compares to his intelligence, and in today's video we draw the Eggmatic villain in 4 different styles. Now, whether it's Robotnik or Eggman, it really doesn't matter, but I do find it funny that I just recently found out that Robotnik means worker, and considering that he uses a lot of robots as his badniks, as his little workers, it does kind of come across as kind of an interesting concept. And that's what I wanted to start off with, which is the concept art. Originally, Dr. Robotnik was actually meant to serve as Sega's mascot, to be the antithesis of Mario. They wanted someone that emulated a lot of the characteristics of Mario, and as you can see in the original concept sketch by Naoto Oshima, you can see the pajamas and then the big mustache have some kind of similarities to Mario, but those plans were quickly scrapped for what we know as Sonic today. But developers did hold on to the concept of a character named Dr. Robotnik and rebranded him as the main antagonist for Sonic going forward. I really love the overall design and concept of this original character. There's a lot of whimsy to it. I also like this kind of cool laptop iPad thing with the cat ears, and it just gives it a very unique vibe for like, what were they thinking when they developed this character? Was he going to be like a dream kind of character? Was he going to be just this super smart character that can develop anything? I just almost want to get another game with this character. It feels like it could go so far, and it seems like a really fun concept sketch. And that's the beauty of a good concept art, is that it can go anywhere. It's just the initial thought process of the designers on a page. And that's what I really wanted to execute in this particular quadrant. I really wanted to showcase the very quick, rapid nature of a concept art. Any kind of concept art that you do, it has to be fast, it has to be quick. There need to be potentially dozens of them. You need to have them from multiple angles. They're really just quick drafts and sketches, so you don't want to get bogged down in too much detail, but you want to try and get down as much detail as you can quickly on a page. Next up, we have the cartoon style, and I was debating whether I wanted to go with the early 90s cartoon style or just keep it simple with nice clean lines, so I eventually chose to go with the nice simple clean lines cartoon look. And that's because Eggman has a specific shape, Dr. Robotnik has a specific shape, and I don't want to deviate too much from that. If I changed him to a little plumpier but stouter version, when I tried to match it all up with all the other iterations that you'll see later in the video, it'll just look weird, it'll just look clunky, and I want it to still look like one cohesive piece. And next we have the realistic style, and for this particular side, I wanted it to look like the Jim Carrey version in the movie, but I also once again wanted it to look like the cartoon of Dr. Robotnik. So I wanted to have a three-dimensional video game feel, but yet the face to feel realistic as it's in Jim Carrey in Sonic 3. One thing in this little section that I want to showcase to you, and that is the importance of time when it comes to realism. As you can see, I have not slowed the footage down at all. This is how long it genuinely takes to add a highlight or a shadow to anything that you do that is considered realism. It takes an exceptionally large amount of time. It is very meticulous, but that's how you get these really smooth, hyper-realistic, at times, blends. It's about taking your time to achieve all those little subtle gradients. That's where all the tiny magic happens. It's not through all the sped up parts that you might see as I quickly wind the video up. I want to really showcase that to you because it really does take a lot of time to get this particular section down, so I hope you really love how it came out because I think it came out great. Before we get any further in the video, if you do like this content, please do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you like seeing me create different versions of your favorite characters, whether it's Hazbin Hotel, Sonic, or any other iteration of character you can think of, then you'll love this channel, and I please ask you to hit that subscribe button. Here's another beginner tip for those of you who like to use alcohol markers and like to use colored pencils. A great way to get a very simple three-dimensional blend if you're having trouble with either medium is try combining mediums. If you do a layer of alcohol marker in a medium tone, then you could take a black and a white, and then work your highlight and your shadow, and now you have your 3 base tones. You have your highlight, your shadow, and your mid-tone, and you can actually then develop a 3-dimensional layer, as you can see here with the latex, how I have my light, my dark, and my middle tones, and same things on the studs that he has on his shirt. You have the light, the middle, and the dark tones, and you'll see me basically build like that throughout the entire piece, and it's a really simple but very fundamental way to get a beautiful rendering across your entire page. Another final tip for realism, and it's going to be showcased here in the gloves, is working gently in layers. I'm going to use the color pencils here very softly, and I'm going to use the gradient of the paper to give it a nice 3-dimensional fuzz, like how a glove naturally would. Cloth has a nice little pill to it, a fuzziness, and that's how I can achieve a really cool, simple effect, and that comes down to studying. So like with the goggles here that you see, they're going to have a much more 3-dimensional, harsh quality. Lots of stark blacks and lots of stark whites. When we study the elements of whatever we're drawing, then we'll actually be able to get a much better understanding of how to shade them and how to color them. As we finish up the realistic side here, I want to also mention that usually the realism takes about the entire length of the overall piece. So like the whiskers and the hairs here and in the mustache, that took me about 15 minutes just to gently layer across, because I wanted to not only look a certain way, but it has to feel believable. So just realize that no matter what, if you're going to do anything realistic, it's just going to take a bit of time. And now, let's head on to the horror side. This might not necessarily come across as horrific, but it is going to be a really scary creature that I'm going to create. And because his name is Eggman, I went with an egg creature approach. Fans of the 4 different styles that I often do will also see that I've done a little homage, if you will, to the cracked effect, and that's by adding all these nice little tiny cracks within the egg itself, because I wanted to make it seem like we're peeking in and getting little dots into what's behind the egg of the creature that I'm creating. But I also wanted to keep the true-to-life red suit as a red exterior to the egg. You might see me do all these little swirls in the egg design, and that's because I wanted to add all these nice little textures onto the egg. I didn't want it to be polished smooth. I wanted it to feel gritty and grimy, and I almost wanted to feel like it's been mishandled a little bit too much, and hence why it broke, and now we have the creature coming out of it. And if you've made it this far, I genuinely want to say thank you. I know I've been sounding a little bit nasally. That's because I've been kind of coming off the back end of a cold, which is now just leaving me a little congested, hence sounding a little odd than I might normally sound. So to get on to the final aspects of the design, I kept it really simple, because if it's a hatchling of some primordial creature, it's not going to have too many details. It's going to look lumpy, it's going to look misshapen, it might even look, well, it most certainly would look deformed. So I didn't want to deviate too much from an egg shape, because that's what it would be bursting out of. And I kept the eye sockets really grim, and I wanted the red aesthetic to be still present throughout. So now it's up to all of you to let me know which one you think is the best in the comments below. Do you like the realistic, the horror, the cartoon, or the concept sketch? Let me know which character you might want me to do in a future video, and as always, I'll see you all in the next video.